But you will be quiet now, said Father, raising his voice and interrupting him because none of the rules of normal family life ever applied to him. I have been very considerate of your feelings here, Bruno, because I know that this move is difficult for you. And I've listened to what you have to say, even though your youth and inexperience force you to phrase things in an insolent manner. And you'll notice that I have not reacted to any of this. But the moment has come when you will simply have to accept that. I don't want to accept it, shouted Bruno, blinking in surprise because he hadn't known he was going to shout out loud. In fact, it came as a complete surprise to him. He tensed slightly and got ready to make a run for it if necessary, but nothing seemed to be making Father angry today. And if Bruno was honest with himself, he would have admitted that Father rarely became angry. He became quiet and distant and always had his way in the end anyway. And rather than shouting at him or chasing him around the house, he simply shook his head and indicated that their debate was at an end. Go to your room, Bruno, he said in such a quiet voice that Bruno knew that he meant business now. So he stood up, tears of frustration forming in his eyes. He walked toward the door, but before opening it, he turned round and asked one final question. Father, he began. Bruno, I'm not going to, began Father irritably. It's not about that, said Bruno quickly. I just have one other question. Father sighed, but indicated that he should ask it, and then that would be the end to the matter. No argument. Bruno thought about his question, wanting to phrase it exactly right this time, just in case it came out as being rude or uncooperative. Who are all those people outside? He said finally. Father tilted his head to the left, looking a little confused by the question. Soldiers, Bruno, he said, and secretaries, staff workers. You've seen them all before, of course. No, not them, said Bruno. The people I see from my window, in the huts, in the distance. They're all dressed the same. Ha, those people, said Father, nodding his head and smiling slightly. Those people, well, they're not people at all, Bruno. Bruno frowned. They're not? He asked, unsure what Father meant by that. Well, at least not as we understand the term, Father continued. But you shouldn't be worrying about them right now. They're nothing to do with you. You have nothing whatsoever in common with them. Just settle into your new home and be good. That's all I ask. Accept the situation in which you find yourself, and everything will be so much easier. Yes, Father, said Bruno, unsatisfied by the response. He opened the door, and Father called him back for a moment, standing up and raising an eyebrow as if he'd forgotten something. Bruno remembered the moment his father made the signal and said the phrase and imitated him exactly. He pushed his 2 feet together and shot his right arm into the air before clicking his 2 heels together and saying in as deep and clear a voice as possible, as much like Father's as he could manage, the words he said every time he left a soldier's presence. Heil Hitler, he said, which he presumed was another way of saying, well, goodbye for now. Have a pleasant afternoon. And that's the end of chapter 5.